Thank you for watching this video, and if you have children or grandchildren, or you just wish to make a better society for the future, you're really gonna wish to stick around and watch this video till the end. I'm here to tell you a story about Greg Newman, a district attorney in Hendersonville, North Carolina, who allowed a 60-year-old James Sapp to walk away from charges of rape of a child, sex offense with the child, and 3 charges of indecent liberties with the child, a 12-year-old girl. All that James Sapp had to do was plead guilty to 1 count of misdemeanor assault on a female. And all Greg Newman had to do was lie to the court, the victim, and her family, and after that, when the state started an investigation against him, he lied to them as well. Let's hear the prosecutor question a Superior Court judge about his actions.
Would you agree that when a lawyer engages in dishonest conduct in violation of the rules is harmful to the administration of justice?
Yes.
The Disciplinary Hearing Commission in this case has found that Mr. Newman knowingly made a false statement of material fact to a tribunal. The panel also found that the defendant engaged in conduct prejudicial to the administration of justice by failing to inform the victim in a rape case of a scheduled guilty plea. The panel also found that the defendant knowingly failed to correct a false statement of material fact and engaged in conduct prejudicial to the administration of justice. The hearing panel also found that Mr. Newman made false statements of material fact in connection with the disciplinary matter, specifically the grievance investigation in this case. Does knowing this information change your opinion about Mr. Newman's truthfulness?
No, it would not change my opinion.
Wow. A Superior Court judge, Judge Powell, just said that it would not change his opinion after finding all of that stuff out about Greg Newman's truthfulness. Why do you think that is? Do you think that's because he already knows that he's a liar? Let's listen to some more of his testimony.
That you are familiar with his opinion for truthfulness generally in the community. Do you know if those people who you testify had that opinion of Mr. Newman's truthfulness knew that he had been reprimanded in 2018 for making a false statement of material fact to the State Bar?
I do not.
Would you agree that when a lawyer who engages in the conduct of the type found in this case engages in such behavior, that it has a negative impact on the public's perception of the profession?
Yes.
Okay, you just heard it. Judge Powell agrees that Greg's actions have a negative impact on the public's perception of justice. Well, I hate to tell you, but it also has a negative impact on the actual application of justice for the public. It's not just the perception, but that's all they seem to care about. And it wasn't just Judge Powell. Everybody who testified from the state said the same thing, that it has a negative impact on the perceptions from the public about the justice system. Now, let's hear what Judge Athena Brooks, who accepted his guilty plea, has to say when the prosecutor is examining her and questioning her on the stand.
And what did Mr. Newman tell you when you asked him whether the victim in the Sapp case had been notified?
That the victim had been advised of the plea and did not want to be heard.
Did you, in October 2015, consider the matter of whether the victim in the Sapp case had been notified of the hearing on the plea material to your determination of the outcome of the case?
It was material to whether or not I was going to accept the plea. Yes, ma'am.
Are you careful and meticulous in the recording of your notes in a situation like this?
In a situation like this, yes, ma'am.
And why?
Because it was a higher level felony that was reduced down to a misdemeanor in district court, and it was a victim's rights case.
Did Mr. Newman ever seek an audience with you after the October 2015 hearing to correct the false statements he made during the Sapp plea hearing?
Not that I recall, no, ma'am.
Did anyone from the district attorney's office seek an audience with you to correct the false statements about victim notification made during the SAP plea hearing?
Not that I know of.
Okay, so Athena testifies, the judge who was sitting on the bench and accepted the plea, that she would not have accepted that plea had she known that the victim's family hadn't been notified. Why is this, you might ask? Because she knows that it's against the law to accept that plea, just like Greg Newman knew it is against the law to offer that plea. Athena continues her testimony to state that Greg, nor anybody from his office, ever contacted her to correct the record. Athena continues her testimony to state that Greg, nor anyone else from his office, ever contacted her to correct the record. Still to this day, this bar complaint has been going on for several years. Now that we know it's unlawful for Greg to offer a plea without the 12-year-old girl or her family being notified, let's see what Greg Newman has to say about it.
This plea deal came together in kind of like a bang-bang fashion. I mean, really, but for the stars aligning and happenstance that Mr. Sapp happens to be in court that day, this plea never even takes place. And I mean, is that a fair
Not that day, you're right. That's right.
And that leads me to wonder how possibly your office could possibly have gotten notice to the family when it came together like that.
Well, you're right, and I think it did happen quickly, and it was over a couple of days' time, and I believe it does. You're correct that way. Now, what I know is that, and I wasn't expecting that it would be taken care of that quickly. I didn't know Mr. Sapp was in the building, so I'm talking to Mr. Stepp, his lawyer, and I have this discussion with Mr. Stepp about how I would like to resolve the case. And it's Mr. Stepp that advised me that his client was there, and for reasons that we don't know. And I went back and asked Mr. Stepp later, I said, do you have any idea why he was there? Because he wasn't on any docket. And Mr. Stepp went back, looked at his file. He said he had no notation, nothing to show why. It was Mr. Stepp that came back to me and said, my client would like to do that. Can we do it today?
Wow. The day Greg Newman offered the plea, somehow magically, James Sapp is just down at the courthouse. He wasn't on the docket, nobody summonsed him there, he didn't have any business there, just somehow magically he manifests. The accused rapist is there and he's asking to go ahead and do this plea today, the plea that he didn't know was coming. That sounds really, really fishy to me. But let's hear what the State Bar hearing officers have to say about all of this conduct.
That he wrote back, and there were misstatements in the second letter as well after Ms. Winstead had asked for more information. And we just felt that, we couldn't give a lawyer practicing in North Carolina a pass simply by saying, I was too busy to go back and look in my file and check thoroughly, so I'll just rely on my memory, which admittedly I know is a couple of years old. I mean, it just didn't sit well with us. We do find then, by clear, cogent, convincing evidence, that the violations set out, or if you would, the issues outlined 1 through 9 have been proven.
Great! This is awesome. Okay, and let me just clear some things up. When he's talking about misstatements, that's just another way of saying that Greg Newman lied. It's just an attorney way of saying it, a lawyer way, I guess. But they found that 9 things he was charged with in this complaint were proven. 9 things. Surely they're going to punish him. Or at the very least, they're going to discipline him for his actions. Let's find out what happens.
This is a unanimous decision from the panel. We did not believe that this was a case of disbarment. It is our decision that Mr. Newman be suspended for a 3-year period. However, we are staying the suspension for the entire time.
Alright, thank you for staying this long in the video. I can tell that you really care about our future. So let me explain what just happened. After the Bar Association, their administrative court that the legislature gave them jurisdiction of, for some reason, they just decided, we're going to suspend his license for 3 years, but we're going to stay that suspension, so he's not actually going to have any real inconveniences in his life. And we're going to put this predator back on the street so that he can let more rapists go. and not prosecute more murders and not prosecute people who actually steal property and go after attorneys who are trying to help the elderly and take it to the news because it pisses them off. Because I personally know that all of those things have happened. I've talked to the accusers. And I'm personally a party of some of them. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Because they're not going to do anything. It's a joke. It's a joke. They even found that he has absolutely no remorse. He has absolutely no remorse. Listen to this.
We found subsection P, but would characterize that as an absence of remorse. And whether in the drafting of this order, if you want to acknowledge that P, absence of remorse, or you can stick it under V, any other factors, and do absence of remorse there.
They're not going to do anything. So what are we going to do? Well, I'll tell you. My first idea is Josh Stein. He says he's there to protect the people of North Carolina. Let's find out. Listen.
The table.
I am the Attorney General of North Carolina. I was elected back in 2016, and I love this job of serving as the people's Attorney General. Every day I get to go to work with very talented, dedicated folks to protect the people of this state in so many different ways. We protect families by combating crime, eliminating the backlog of untested sexual assault kits and making sure it never develops again, protecting kids from child sex abusers, fighting against domestic violence.
Let's find out. Let's start writing them and telling them, hey, if you're here to protect the people in North Carolina, then why don't you go prosecute this predator running the street called Gregory Newman? Okay? And you want to know what to prosecute him for? He's already on the record of North Carolina courts as lying before the courts. Lying to the courts. Lying to the victims and their families. Breaking the North Carolina Constitution. Because the reason why Athena Brooks would not have granted that plea had she known he had not contacted the family members is right here. It's in the Constitution. It's in the Constitution. It's Article 1, Section 37, Rights of Victims of Crimes. Okay? And their basic rights are they have the right to be noticed about court hearings, the right to be present at court hearings, the right to be heard before any type of adjudication or sentencing. This is why Greg Newman broke the law. The right to reasonably confer with the prosecution, meaning Greg, before he does anything. He violated all of those rights. He violated the Constitution, which means he violated his oath of office to the Constitution. He committed perjury because he lied under oath. He took an oath of office. He violated the Constitution. It's not my Constitution. It's his. It's the state's. The state should be upset with him. But he committed treason upon the people. He committed treason upon the people that he doesn't prosecute on their behalf. And he committed treason upon that little girl and her family. And I know most people think about treason as this, warring against the state. And that's high treason. It's high treason. But petite treason is breach of fidelity that affects individuals. Okay? Because treason just means betraying or betrayal of trust or betraying of faith. When you go and read the state constitutions, every single state constitution says the same thing, that they only exist, the whole purpose of government is to protect life, liberty, and property. So if they're getting away with this because what Greg Newman just did proves that Jeffrey Epstein wasn't like this rare case of a billionaire, that this happens all over, the fact that all of the bad actors are in on it with them and nobody else corrected the errors on the record still to this day kind of prove that as well. So why does that government even exist anymore? It's not working. Anyways, I'm a little irritated about the whole situation. I know I was going to put out another video about the administrative courts, but I had to do this first. I don't normally wear black, but Greg Newman, you make me feel dark. If you wish to know something to do, start writing to Josh Stein. Send him a letter every month, asking him if he's prosecuted Greg Newman yet, for the reasons I listed before. See what happens. If you wish for another way to kind of see how we can create change, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, but better yet, if you really, really care, if you really see how messed up this world is, and it's this messed up because we don't follow law anymore, then sit down with somebody, show them this video, and talk about it. We all know at least one individual that we could do that with. And I don't mean just send it to them, and talk with them about it later. I mean, like, actually sit down, take the time to sit down and watch it with them, and then talk about it. Anyways, just to show you how crazy the government's got us kind of turned backwards. They have taken away our right to be an accuser because the accuser would be the one prosecuting. To accuse expresses something more formal and grave than a charge. So accusing somebody is different than the government actually charging you with something. And it's more formal and more grave. Think about that. And when they took that right for us to be the accuser down in a court of law, not one of these administrative courts, like they kept talking about administering justice, they gave us the person of a victim. And a victim is a living creature killed and offered as a sacrifice to a deity or supernatural power. That's really interesting. Just look at some of the words they're using. Anyways, next time I'm going to talk about an administrative court. Let's stop fighting with each other over red and blue, black and white, rich and poor. And let's start working together and make something brighter for future generations. We got to quit electing administrators and start finding ministers to follow. I'll explain that more in my next video. Anyways, I'm Just Conspiracy, and I just wish to conspire with other good people of this planet to leave a better world for future generations than the world we all grew up in. Thank you.